Helga, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College will help you get where you want to go. Located downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, one-on-one mentorship, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality. Connect with a counselor today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
At Metro Transit, they want to say thank you to those who have been riding with them, reintroduce themselves to those who have been away, and welcome those who are new to the community and transit system. During this time of transition, Metro Transit is excited to offer $1 rides for the months of September and October as our region continues to move forward together. Learn more at metrotransit.org/dollar rides. That's metrotransit.org/dollar rides.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for showers and storms today with a high near 76. Tonight, more rain with a low around 67. Chance for storms with a high near 84. Victor's 1959 Cafe on Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis is open for both dining room and outdoor patio service. All of your Cuban favorites are there, like the mango pancake, sandwich cubano, seafood paella, and more. Plus, takeout is still available. More at victors1959cafe.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanjahare, which means distant thunder. And we've had a lot of that thunder lately, and that's a good deal. That's a good thing for us. My colonized name and taxpayer name is Robert Pilot, and we talk about Native issues here. And as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
The American Indian Cancer Foundation.
We're live.
I know. I can't do it. The American Indian Cancer Foundation and the Native American Community Clinic in Minneapolis are hosting a vaccine event on Friday, September 10th, between 3 and 6 p.m. It will be taking place at the Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis. So you should head on out on Friday, September 10th between 3 and 6 and get your vaccine.
Hey, I just want to say a couple things before we get to the news. And one of the things is that our daughter's getting married this weekend. So we're all jazzed up. I'm wearing my bling here that Ogimaa gave me here. I just want to give you a quick shout out. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And ring my Gaga gave me, or not my Gaga, my Nani gave me.
Yep, which is mother.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And So it's going to be a fun-filled weekend, right?
Yeah. So tonight we go to the groom's dinner or the rehearsal dinner, and that's like right after the show. We're going to try to sneak out a little bit earlier if we can. We'll see what happens.
Right.
And then tomorrow's the wedding.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then they'll live happily ever after.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And we're all looking forward to that. And blessings to the both of them, and good wishes and love and happiness.
You should do the prayer. I'm about to sneeze because of this cat.
Oh my God. So if anybody's watching us on Facebook Live, we have our cat Lucy, who won't leave us alone. So she has to sit on the table with us, because if she doesn't, then she just doesn't stop meowing. So
yeah. Hey, today we got we have Andy from MN350.
Andy Pearson. Yep.
And one of the things I just want to mention too, before Ogimaa gets with the news, and that's the second thing too I wanted to mention, is that you don't hear news like this anywhere over Turtle Island, and we really appreciate Ogimaa and all the work she does to get this news. But it's also kind of easy to get the news lately here all over Turtle Island, because stuff is happening here, and I'm sure Ogimaa is going to really talk about that. But we need to really put out the prayers to our water protectors. So why don't we go to Ogimaa with the news?
Hi, Annie, bonjour, everybody. Robert is right. I have a little saying, and I don't say it on air very often. I'm Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe, and the good news, what is it? The good news is there's always news in Indian country. The bad news is it's not always good news, and that is the case for today in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Minnesota State Capitol hosted, I guess you could say hosted, a 4-day ceremony for water protectors returning from the 220-mile walk from the headwaters in Minnesota to the state capitol in opposition of the Line 3 pipeline in Minnesota. Those water protectors were met with their permit for the 4-day ceremony by chain link fence and concrete barricades surrounding the capitol, and some 200, is it state patrol?
Yep.
Robert, who was there? Yeah, state patrol officers. Those who chose to stay today, the permit technically ended yesterday. They left one teepee on the Capitol lawn, and there were those that chose to stay in prayer and in ceremony on the Capitol lawn peacefully. And they were completely surrounded by Capitol Police and State Patrol facing outward from the group. And I haven't gotten any information on exactly how many were arrested yet, but there was plenty of arrests at the Capitol grounds today for water protectors standing their ground in Minnesota at the Capitol. And honestly, I think that action today was incredibly poignant, because those types of actions have been happening all over Minnesota since December of 2020. All over Minnesota, water protectors have been torn from ceremony, torn from prayer, and brutalized by police officers, state troopers, and those that are members of the Northern Lights Task Force, which is working and sharing intelligence with the Enbridge Energy Company, who is putting in Line 3, according to a new article that just came out from The Intercept. So they're sharing this information with Enbridge directly. They're brutalizing these unarmed water protectors and have been torn out of ceremony. And I think that it's incredibly poignant that this happened on the lawn for the Minnesota State Capitol, for a governor that said that what was the executive order Nancy Bolio mentioned on the Rise Coalition video today? Robert, do you remember it?
No, I don't. But she talked about treaties as the supreme law, and it's a sad thing to see what's happening here, and it's also a good thing that we're covering it, because we caught a live feed during our HR meeting today, and yeah, it's sad. It's sad.
It's deeply sad, and it's deeply disturbing that this is where we are at with the state of Minnesota and Native people communicating. The executive order that Nancy Bolio was talking about was an executive order that she believed Walz had put into effect. That was a nation-to-nation executive order for better communication with Native people, and that's just simply not happening. Governor Walz missed the opportunity, as people said yesterday, to come down and address the crowd. He's not made any sort of address or apology to the Native people for what's happening with the Line 3 project and the 5 billion gallons of water that Enbridge is allowed to remove from Minnesota waterways for $120, I think that permit costs. I mean, I could go on forever, and it really makes me angry to talk about it. But the big news that I want to let everybody know is that Enbridge has had, I believe, 28 frack outs or discharges of fracking fluid or drilling fluid into either waterways or wetlands. Enbridge, from their last interview on the Native America Calling, in which I was a part of with Winona LaDuke and Tisha Martineau, that representative from Enbridge said that there was only one discharge into an actual waterway, meaning the rest of the 20-some were into wetlands. Well, the discharge into the wetland is what actually violates the 401 water quality permit, which is currently in the Minnesota Court of Appeals. The decision from that Minnesota Court of Appeals on the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency 401 water quality permit is coming up on Monday, August 30th at about 10 a.m., which is about a week early. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency themselves on social media said that this was a violation. So I am curious to see how this ruling goes, considering a lot of the other legal standing has not worked.
Yeah. Again, Wendy's over here shaking her head. Wendy, this is a radio show. You got to say something.
I know I have to say something. I'm honestly, I have no words.
Yeah,
You know,
I
what
know.
Ogimaa is talking about every day, it just seems just unreal to me. I just don't get people. I don't understand how this could even be happening.
Right.
And I'm sure Andy Pearson from MN350, who's a wonderful allied water protector, who's going to be joining us here shortly, is going to give us some more, in-depth information of what went down today, because I know Robert and I and Wendy were not able to get down to the Capitol today. So Andy's going to have probably some more play-by-play information of how things went down today. Maybe he's got some information for us on arrests, I hope.
Yeah.
And Robert, you were right when you opened it up. Our water protectors, they need our prayers, they need our support. So if you have the capacity, if you have the ability, if you drink water, you're a human being, you care about animals, you care about the planet, and you want to continue living on it, Line 3 is your fight too, and we need you to join it.
You know, what's really interesting, Wendy and Ogimaa, is that there is so much Native news out there right now. There's so many things going good and bad in Indian country, Wendy. But here we are in the midst of another battle that's been going on for 500 years for our indigenous people all over Turtle Island. And here we are talking about this in 2021. It's amazing. It's shattering. And we need to resist, divest, and join a group and run for office and really take care of this stuff. There's good things happening in Indian country. We have a lot of things that never happened for us before, but we're still stuck with this colonized attacking of Native people and Native land. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
We are your relatives,
We are your relations,
brothers,
sisters,
sons.
daughters,
And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown out from family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
Homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
In Minnesota, perinatal and postpartum mothers have legal protections to help keep them safe and healthy in the workplace. That means exclusions from heavy lifting, safe spots for breastfeeding, and more. The Women's Economic Security Act protects the rights of pregnant and postpartum women to work safely during pregnancy and to express breast milk at work. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry is here to help you and to protect your rights. Call 800-342-5354 or visit dli.mn.gov/newparents.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Bonjour, I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Wow, love it. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Hey, you know, when we started our show almost 4 years, I guess 3 years, 9 months, the first couple years we wow, that was a loud bang.
Yeah.
The first couple years we always suffered from getting really top-notch guests, and one of the people that always came through
who is top-notch.
That's right, is Andy Pearson of MN350, and we're so happy to have him on. Wendy and Ogimaa, you know, we're kind of in the dark what happened today. We can recap the great 4 days that happened at the Capitol and get deep into it. Welcome, Andy Pearson.
Hey, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to get to be here.
Yeah, so, you know, I know you were in the background of what was happening. I got to MC some cool speakers. Wendy and I were there when the water walkers came in at the Capitol. And so can you give us an update, kind of what's been happening in the last, I don't know, 36 hours?
Oh, absolutely. And it was just so wonderful to have you MCing. And I didn't even put the pieces together when I got up and wore my Native Roots Radio shirt that morning, but maybe you saw that. It was really good to be there. So this this gathering, right? This gathering at the Capitol, Treaties Not Tar Sands, actually started back on Monday, and it started with an opening of ceremony by a group of indigenous grandmothers from the White Earth Nation who brought this idea forward that they wanted to come down and hold ceremony for 4 days at the Capitol in that space. And so as we're starting that ceremony, artist Rory Wakemup was also setting up a very large number of teepees that came from all parts of the movement on the Capitol lawn there. So kind of really creating an amazing space. And for those first couple of days, you know, Monday and Tuesday, it was kind of people could come and drop in and join and sit there, be in community, come to the opening, you know, each day if they wanted to. So there were maybe, you know, 50 to 70 people kind of hanging around that space and just kind of beginning to kind of create the space for the event that was to come, the welcoming of the walkers, and also to just be in community together. And there were some talking circles that happened, so kind of join in those. And then on Wednesday the 25th, now, that was the arrival day for the Treaty People Walk for Water, which I imagine you've already talked about, but it's a really incredible group of walkers that was traveling 256 miles from the upstream crossing of the Mississippi to the state capitol. It's a very long walk, and they did all of it on foot. They were joined as they were getting closer by a huge number of walkers. So by the time that they reached the Capitol on Wednesday afternoon, it was probably at least 500 people walking with them. Right. So they come into the Capitol and they were welcomed. There were some songs and some giveaway for them. And then we had a rally. It was probably all told, probably the longest rally I've ever been part of. I think it was with including the welcome for the walkers, was about 5.5 hours of speaking, according to my coworker Jenna. And I think that really speaks to the richness of the movement right now. Just the breadth of people and different communities and organizations that are finding, their voices to speak up right now against this issue. And we also saw a huge delegation, probably about a dozen people from the Minnesota legislature. And of course, we know there's many more legislators than that who oppose the pipeline, some of whom have come on this show. But really incredible to see that many make time in their day to be there and to stand and to say, this is wrong. This is wrong. And we're here to call out this Governor Walz, for doubling down on this wrong, for promoting it, for buying into it, for being inactive in ways where he could have stopped it, and active in ways where he sped it along and kind of furthered its development. And I think one of the other big messages was calling on President Biden, because he is the person right now who has a couple of easy levers to stop this project. We know he could take away its water permits. We know that he could take away its presidential permit, which is what lets the oil cross the international border from Canada. And we need him to do those things. That's what stepping up looks like for him. I know there were calls to this is a project that's been done without that free, prior, and informed consent. This is a project that violates treaty rights in 1855. This is a project that's directly against climate justice, more carbon emissions than the whole state's economy, about 50 coal plants worth. It's a really bad deal. So we heard that spoken to really powerfully. And then a group of folks, several hundred folks, actually just moved a little further south on the Capitol lawn, and then chose to hold space there overnight. And so they did kind of held that space and said, we're staying here because we need eyes on this. We need you to not just ignore us anymore. We've been ignored a lot, been ignored throughout this process. It's time to not be ignored. So, and then on Thursday, let's see, you're getting the long version here today. I hope that's okay. On Thursday, there's a very powerful jingle dress ceremony in the morning after the grandmothers did their opening, and then they closed out that ceremony space there on Thursday. And then a group of folks did decide as well to spend the overnight there on Thursday, and actually along with a teepee that was kept around. The rest were taken down. That group kept that up. And so second night, even though I think people got quite wet, there was a lot of rain, but powerfully held there. And as of today, there was a big mobilization of police, which was again a kind of going along the theme of the fences and barricades and guards that were at the Capitol. It really is, I think, an indication of how this governor has chosen to welcome the water protectors, into this space. So there were an awful lot of police mobilized. They did, I think that made it very clear that teepee needed to be taken down, or that they were going to, is my understanding. Teepee was taken down, so that was protected. And I believe that that most folks who were out there were, able to to leave the area and to come back if they wanted to. I was not fully on site for all that time. I was kind of running around, so you're getting maybe a less informed here than should be. But what I can tell you is that there was a pretty big, pretty unfortunate mobilization, by the police to say, hey, this can't continue here, and my understanding is that that space for now is no longer being held, and that there are plans for a march actually tomorrow, that there's been a call made around, which I can look up and relay that on to here. So I think that's about it. A really, really powerful few days. Kind of actions with lots of different pieces, action to action. And so grateful for everybody who came out, who helped to hold that space, who was there at the big gathering on the 25th as well. 2,000 people there that day. Yeah. So really, really amazing.
I always say 3,000. Andy always brings up the fact that, this pipeline would be illegal in Canada.
Well, because Canada has stronger environmental laws, and that's why it's here in the U.S. Canada.
Yeah, and of course, part of the pipeline goes through Canada, but it is totally true that Canada has been trying to build pipelines to its own shores, and those have been stopped because people have said, we just don't want it here. This is not what we're about. You've got to not do that. So. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Because we probably would not know each other if it was the Dakota Access Pipeline would have went through Bismarck as they originally planned. And they said, oh, no, pipelines leak. Put it through Dakota Access, or put it through, somewhere else where the Indians are and the aquifers and all those things.
We met on the bus out to Standing Rock. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it seems like a long time ago, but not that long ago, and here we are.
Still talking about pipelines.
Yeah.
3.5 years later.
Unbelievable.
Bit incredible, isn't it?
Andy, we're going to take a break here in about 30 seconds. Can you hold on for another segment?
Of course, I'll be here.
And what we can do, and I understand Mary Jean just put up here on Facebook that there's a fundraiser tonight for bail. We can talk about that and all the other stuff. Thank you so much, Andy, for coming in. Wendy, it's like old times, except Andy's not here holding the dog or anything. Yeah.
We'll get him back here.
Right on. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. We're talking today about pipelines, and I just want to give a quick shout out to our fans in Madison. We really appreciate you listening. I talked to the owner today. He called me up, and his new app, people are listening. Twice as many people have listened than they did in the last week, and I think it has to do with the content that we have bringing here, because we're doing news where no other place is covering. So we'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me one. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Appliance savings on a stick from Minnesota specialists at Warner Stellian. Plus, get an extra 5% back you won't find anywhere else. You'll save hundreds, even thousands on top-rated in-stock appliances. Warner Stellian customers enjoy free delivery and haul away by our trusted specialists. And now, open a Warner's card for 18 months 0% financing and get a $100 bonus. Get 5% back on top-rated appliances during savings on a stick, only at Warner Stellian.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
This is David from The David Pakman Show, where we expose the hatriots, liars, and Trumpists on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
It's time to experience the amazing flavors of eatlocalminnesota.com. It's your key to unlocking the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities. Crooner's Supper Club is a little piece of old school nightlife in the 21st century. Enjoy a delicious dinner, fabulous cocktails, and music from some of the best jazz artists in 2 elegant indoor venues, plus the outdoor Belvedere stage. And check croonersmn.com to see the upcoming schedule of great jazz artists. That's Crooner's Supper Club, just north of 694 off Highway 65 and at croonersmn.com. Come Come visit the award-winning Hazel's Northeast in Minneapolis for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or weekend brunch. For breakfast, try the slow-cooked brisket hash, hippie cakes, and meat waffle. While for lunch, enjoy favorites like the buttermilk fried chicken sandwich or veggie burger. Hazel's is open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 8 to 8, with a Sunday brunch from 8 to 2. Located off 29th and Johnson in Northeast Minneapolis. More at hazelsne2go.com.
Hi, I'm Claire Ferreira, president and owner of Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. My grandfather started Standard over 90 years ago, and we've been a family-owned company ever since, serving over 500,000 of our fellow Minnesotans. I'm proud to be the fourth generation of my family working in our business. And when we say we treat our employees and clients like family, we truly mean it. See how we can help your family stay comfortable all year long at standardheating.com. That's standardheating.com.
And right now is the last call on air conditioners from Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. During August, you can save an extra $900 when you purchase an AC with a high-efficiency furnace. Standard Heating has a warehouse full of air conditioners and everything must go. So take advantage of the best prices of the cooling season and save big on an air conditioner and furnace combo from Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. To schedule an appointment, call 612-824-2656 or visit standardheating.com. That's standardheating.com. With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for showers and storms today with a high near 76. Tonight, more rain with a low around 67. Chance for storms with a high near 84. Have Air Seal Tech, Minnesota's premier insulation contractor, provide a free no-obligation inspection on your home's insulation health. During summer, an improperly sealed attic could be showering your family with mold spores, allergens, dust, and more. Call 612-888-3664. That's Air Seal Tech.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Kanja Hade.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Yes, it is. Hey, we're here with Andy Pearson of MN 350, which means Minnesota 350. And maybe, Andy, what you can do real quick in this segment here is just talk a little bit about MN 350's organization, and then we can get into deep how we can support you, how we can support all the water protectors, and maybe get in a deep dive about that, Andy.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Minnesota 350, we've been around for about 10 years, and we're a climate justice organization, volunteer driven. The 350 in the name, it's a geeky name, but it's that upper limit of carbon pollution in our air that makes a world that's livable for us. And above that, we kind of start going in a really bad way in terms of our climate and all the effects that has on people and on places and communities. And so right now we're way above 350 parts per million. We're at about 415, which just is to say we have a lot of work to do. Right. And that's the work that we're trying to do, is build the movement, the communities, the practices, and the policies, to kind of bring that back down so that we can leave this place better than we found it. And so that's kind of the root of the work for me. And the thing with the pipelines, which is my role in MN 350, and so many of us on our team, is that, those are major pinch points, right, in our system of extraction and combustion that puts so much of this bad stuff into the air. We know that pipelines like Line 3 have not only a huge impact in terms of treaty rights and in terms of water risk and risk to wild rice, but also in terms of our climate. And a real effort that's outsized to some, I think goes into fighting these projects because the impact is so outsized compared to so many other things that we could be doing. So hopefully that's a good little overview.
Yeah, it is. And I think probably since the last time you've been on, Andy, is we're in Chicago and we're in Madison. We have big traction there, and a lot of people reaching out to us, Andy, that had no idea this was going on or support us. I know I was in Madison a couple of weeks ago, Wendy, and I saw the same sign that we have, Stop Line 3 out there, and it was like, right on. This is not because of Native Roots Radio, but because, and maybe a little part of it, but that the fight goes on there too.
It could be. I gotta say, I've met a bunch of folks recently in this movement at events and such who are from Chicago, who are from Madison. So hey, if you're out there and listening and you're making the choice to show up, thank you, for that. And if you're out there listening and you're interested in getting involved, there's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah. Hey, Ogimaa, do you have a question for Andy or a statement by any chance? Because one of the things that we didn't want to tell everybody this, but Wendy and I need to leave early on the show, and that Andy and Ogimaa are going to take over the show at the after this segment. So Andy's got to look at his face like, what?
Well, just went to a.
He's going, I got a dinner date. What's going on?
Okay, I've got some of that pretty awesome native news that you were talking about, Robert.
Cool.
So I think I can cover it if
All
Andy
right.
has to go.
All right.
But my question I do have for Andy is that we have a viewer, Mary, who said fundraiser tonight for bail. So I'd like Andy to please talk about that fundraiser that's happening.
Oh, and I'd love to talk about it. This is a fundraiser I'm really excited about. I won't be able to be there myself, which I'm bummed about. It's a Water Protector Defense fundraiser. It starts at 7, and it's at the Indigenous Roots Cultural Arts Center. Of course, that's in St. Paul, and you could look it up. It's over there on East 7th. So it's $5 to $25 at the door. No one turned away. And it's a time to help give some money to support the water protectors who have taken legal risk, who have been part of that very, very long tradition of civil disobedience and direct action that is present in this movement and in so many others, who put their bodies on the line to stand up against the injustice. And I want to give a particular shout. I'm especially bummed to miss this fundraiser because it's a performance, and the performers are going to be so good. Remember the group of Aztec dancers who were at the rally. I see Ogimaa remembers the Aztec dancers that were at the rally on Wednesday are going to be there. They actually operate somewhat out of the space where this is going to be held. And also my friend Jessica Garraway, who has sung at a number of Line 3 events, though not at the rally the other day. She is in a band called the Wooden Shoe Ramblers. They're just terrific, and I could not recommend them more highly. So she's going to be there. I wish I could be there to hear her. So make sure that you go, turn out, and just hear some wonderful organizers and people in the movement doing that creative part of their lives, the arts that we need that sustain us, and help us sustain the water protectors, through being part of that.
Andy, when we first met going to Standing Rock, Marianne and her crew were already there. And if you remember, we brought children or young people in to take over for the cooks. And this was early on in Standing Rock. As a matter of fact, I think a week before that is when the dogs attacked. They had the dogs attacked water protectors, and we were going the week after that, if I remember right. And so we took 2 buses to Standing Rock with young people, myself, MN 350, Ho Chunk Nation paid for 2 buses to go out there. And as soon as we parked on, what is that, the 2018, I can't remember what the name of that road was, we had an eagle fly over our bus. And I swear to God, the eagle winked at me, Wendy, when he flew over our bus, and we knew we were in the doing the right thing, and we were at the right place. Do you remember that? You remember that, Andy?
I wasn't sure whether that was to Wendy or me. I do. Yeah, I remember talking about that at the time. That was incredible. What a space. What a mass movement of people trying to do the right thing.
Well, and as we know, the 8th fire is spread all across Turtle Island, and here we are again. Many allies that were there yesterday, and it's funny, I always complain about this too, that the press always underestimates the amount of people there. And I can't, it blows my mind. My lying eyes are not lying, but it's, I don't know when.
Well, they shut off the internet too when we were there at Standing
Oh,
Rock.
my
You couldn't
God.
get a signal anywhere or call out or get calls in. We had to
Facebook.
climb up this hill, which was pretty steep. And it was called
Facebook Hill or Facebook Mountain,
or
wasn't
something,
it?
and we would go up there. That was the only place we could make phone calls or get internet at all. So,
And then we find out through documentaries and the Freedom of Act is that they were being blocked by the police.
Mhm.
The signal was being blocked.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, and the other thing to consider with a lot of these mass movement things too, like what Andy's saying with the media, always underestimates the amount of people that are there. The media also phrases these protests and the protesters and what's happening in a really negative light. Like KSTP, I think, said something to the effect of protesters were trying to stop the progress of Line 3. And even just using that word, insinuating that Line 3 is the progress and that, we're trying to inhibit progress in Minnesota. And it's it's just this really bizarre concept that Line 3 would be progress when we're talking about adding in the carbon emission of 50 new coal power plants, when we're talking about going through tribal treaty rights, when we're talking about 5 billion gallons of Minnesota water and the worst drought we've ever seen. I mean, that's not progress, but I mean, the way that media shares this information is so important. The way that people talk to one another about these actions, these movements, these stories is so important to make sure that you're checking your words, that you are talking about this, that people are water protectors and not protesters.
Well, we could go on and on about the news, Ogimaa. I mean, we watched that station you were just talking about, and they were talking constantly about the drought and how up north they have to dig 20 feet deeper to get into the aquifer, into these wells. But you didn't hear anything about them handing away a water for this project to a foreign company. And so again, with corporate news, we get half the news or a quarter of the news or a quarter of the counted people or whatever
Absolutely. We're not, Native people don't get counted. They don't look at it.
We're still here, darn it.
Mm-hmm.
We're still here. Andy, what you've been in this fight for a long time and have seen stuff. What's the light at the end of the tunnel, or is it another oncoming train? What is your perspective? What's going on here?
That's a real question. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a story we're still writing. We all know that. We're kind of choosing what that light's going to be in some ways. I think there's a lot of big tides that are happening right now that are pulling us away from this kind of development, away from fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. It's incredible that for me, who's been very locked into our Minnesota context here and this particular fight, to step back and look at all the really incredible number of fights that have won in the last year. It is like, it's historic. There's been many pipelines that are huge that have been stopped. There was just this victory recently in Louisiana, where a big plastics plant, which was set to provide some demand for some of this extraction, plastics a major demand driver, that was stopped, and it was going to be in a community that would have been very badly impacted by it. There's been win after win after win, and I'm hearing a lot of folks say if Line 3 gets built, and of course we all hope that it doesn't get finished, but if it does, that it's the last of these mega projects that we're going to see, because they're getting too hard to build. I also know that it certainly doesn't mean, no matter where you go, that people are going to stop fighting it, right? I mean, with the climate, every day that you prevent it from operating is a day that you're doing a good thing. You're putting us more in the direction we need to be going on our climate. So yeah, I think that we decide what that light at the end of the tunnel will be, through our choices, through our organizing, through the work we do, and what we try to build. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for the last minute call. As always, we have that as being on the show at least 10 times. We have your robe and your T-shirts here to hand to you. You're in that special club, so thank you so much for being on. Hey, up next, Ogimaa with the news. We'll be right back as Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
In Minnesota, perinatal and postpartum mothers have legal protections to help keep them safe and healthy in the workplace. That means exclusions from heavy lifting, safe spots for breastfeeding, and more. The Women's Economic Security Act protects the rights of pregnant and postpartum women to work safely during pregnancy and to express breast milk at work. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry is here to help you and to protect your rights. Call 800-342-5354 or visit dli.mn.gov/new parents.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Alusa Nation.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio, everybody. This is Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe taking over for Robert and Wendy for the last segment tonight. They are on their way to a wedding for Robert's daughter, and I want to make sure to put on air a nice big congratulations for that. You must be a very proud Jaji, Robert, and I hope that the ceremony goes off without a hitch. Tis. This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves. I am not going to howl on my own tonight, everybody. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. I do have Andy Pearson still with me here from MN350. Andy Pearson is a water protector, and it looks like he's got a little bit more information he wanted to share with us. And it's something that I mentioned earlier about how the Minnesota law enforcement is actually feeding information about activists directly to Enbridge. Would you like to touch base on that a little bit, Andy?
Oh, yeah. And if you mentioned it earlier, that's great. Don't need to double down on it. I know Robert had mentioned a few minutes ago about how there was all this weirdness happening with phones at Standing Rock. For anybody who was out there, phones shutting down and calls intercepted, and sometimes there was service, sometimes there wasn't. Might mean they're using devices that capture cell phone information. We know those exist. We know they were used at Standing Rock. The article, which it sounds like you already mentioned, was just a piece in The Intercept that came out today. So you can find that at theintercept.com, that shows that here in Minnesota, the police have been in deep coordination with Enbridge, not a surprise to anybody, and that they've also been feeding information about activists in the movement, including people's names, directly to Enbridge. Which is, again, it's not unexpected, but it's pretty disturbing.
It is disturbing, and it's highly dangerous to the water protectors who have been out here. We're talking about, Enbridge now becoming and acting as more of a mercenary company, the kind of companies that you see down in South America. If they have people's names and information about where to find them. I mean, so far I haven't heard any stories of something like that happening, but the fact that the law enforcement who's supposed to protect and serve Minnesotans would serve local activist names to a foreign corporation on a silver platter is absolutely one of the most disturbing pieces of all of this. But I think it's most upsetting that it is really not surprising. So right now, Enbridge has a special account set up by the state of Minnesota to cover pipeline-related policing, and there's been about $2.3 million in Enbridge funds sent to public safety agencies so far. And the level of close coordination with them, and I'm taking this from the Intercept article, has been clear since late last year. I think the first time I mentioned it was late last year because the Northern Lights Task Force had hosted some sort of training event near like Camp Ripley in Minnesota, and it was talking about how water protectors were going to fill balloons full of urine and how they were going to respond to that. And none of those actions are anything like what's happened from the water protectors here so far, and it's truly outrageous. Of all the media that's happening, all the media that you've seen, Andy, I know that you've been involved in the Stop Line 3 movement probably about as long as I have, about 7 or 8 years, maybe even longer. I don't know how long you've been with MN350, but we've known each other. We've worked through some of this when it was very, very grassroots before anybody knew what was going on with Line 3. In all of this that's happened, what do you think is the most ridiculous lie or outright mistruth or misnomer that you've heard from the media so far? What do you think that is?
Oh my word, what a question. Well, yeah, I just thought of a giant lie, but it came from Enbridge rather than from the media. I think it was repeated in some media. I guess I have two. So that one that Enbridge seeded was that they couldn't take out the old pipeline because there weren't enough timber mats in the world for them to build the necessary access roads to run their equipment on. They said the lack of timber mats will be a sufficient barrier so that it can't be done. And we did some, I remember they were asked, and I think we've been in this about the same amount of time. You remember kind of going through a lot of that regulatory process together, and they were cross-examined by one of the intervening groups, the Youth Climate Interveners, about like, hey, what's the size of a timber mat? Oh, okay. Well, they knew it in advance. They're like, yeah, here's the math on how many that would be. Like, is this more than exist in the world? And like, how many is this compared to the project you're proposing to build? Anyway, so super geek level there. The other thing that always gets me, honestly, Ogimaa, is like crowd counts. When you see an action like this, that on Wednesday was at least 2,000 people. I'm saying 2,000 conservatively because I did a crowd count and it was clearly at least 2,000. But when you see it covered as a few hundred water protectors gathered, or sometimes I've seen huge crowds that are covered as dozens of water protectors gathered. Yeah, well, that's technically true. It was, several hundred dozen water protectors gathered, but just saying dozens kind of confuses it a little bit. So anyway.
Yeah, several hundred dozens. That's exactly, and that doesn't make any sense to anybody, but that's how it goes. And I think crowd counts are probably up there for me in all of this. And then I think some of the largest mistruths that I've seen coming through in the media are like what went through today on the Channel 5 was that these are protesters who are here trying to stop the progress of the Line 3 pipeline. They give no history on the Line 3 pipeline. They give no information that these are indigenous people to Minnesota who are here to have their treaty rights honored, which are the supreme law of the land, as Nancy Bolio will tell you up and down in Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. Treaties are the highest law of the land, and they're not being honored right now. And it's absolutely within our rights to be able to be going to the state of Minnesota and to be saying, hey, we need to be heard on these things, and to repeatedly be told and shut down from the media, from the state, from everywhere, with these very negative, very hurtful stereotypes that were, enraged protesters who might do some sort of harm is, I think, the most aggravating thing for all of this so far. I mean, I've never felt safer in my life so far within a large crowd of people than I ever have at anywhere else other than a Line 3 rally or event, because those people, it doesn't matter who you are, those people will treat you like family if you're an ally in that crowd. And I think that that's really beautiful. And we need to remember that part of the movement as well. That part of the movement can get lost in the stress and the chaos. So if you're a water protector and you're listening and there's a lot of drama around you, we love you. We are all together in this, and we got to just stick together and remember to take care of one another.
Absolutely.
Well, Andy, we're just about to wrap up the show here. Can you give that plug one more time for when that concert is tonight and where to find them?
You'd better get in the car, or if you're listening to this in the car, get out and get in there. It's at Indigenous Roots in St. Paul. It's on East 7th. It starts at 7, but now it will go a few hours. There's a few performers, so even if you're not there yet, you still have time. I see we had a comment on Facebook from Jessica Garraway, who I shouted out, Wooden Shoe Rambler. So go there to see her, because it's going to be great. See the Aztec dancers. And all the others who are going to be part of tonight. So, and if you can't make it there, on the screen here, stopline3bailfunds.org, stopline3bailfunds.org. Great place to go, and you can help out some folks who've taken a stand.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sticking through this last section with me, Andy. This is actually the first time I've done this on Native Roots Radio by myself, so I hope I did okay, everybody. If you're listening, give me a critique in the comments. I am going to close the traditional way with Robert's sayings. I would like to end with these thoughts. If you have been listening to this show, you are the resistance. From Chief Plenty Coops, the ground on which we stand is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to mask up again, resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I am Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe, in here for host Robert and Wendy Pilot tonight. The revolution is kicking into high gear. I would like to thank Andy Pearson for joining us tonight, all of the water protectors on the show with us. Thank you, Miigwech, Pinagigi, to all of you, and we want to make sure to stop line 3 and free Leonard Peltier. Miigwech, everybody.
Hi, this is Laura, and I want to tell you about my family's favorite thing. It's our wood stove.